name is Latricia Wilson Alford. I am the interim executive director for Fighting Back Partnership. And the reason why we are holding this forum is, as you know, a lot of our community is living in fear. Fear from deportation or other type of other type of hate crimes. So we felt that with Vallejo being the most diverse city in the Bay Area, that it was only fitting that we would host this event. I received a couple of calls because there was an article in the Vallejo Times-Herald. And they were saying, oh, those numbers don't add up. But the numbers came from an organization called Suburban.org. And the reason why they don't add up is because generally you have your 4 subgroups considered African American, Asian, Caucasian, Latino. But here in Vallejo, we had 11% of our population who say they don't belong to any of those groups. We have 7% of our population that say that they belong to 2 or more groups. We have 1% of our population who make up 3 of those ethnic groups. The numbers also Americans, which also make up almost 1%. And the numbers also did not include Hawaiians. So therefore our numbers, that is where we got diversity. And I think there's some confusion because we always think of the 4 main groups. So that is one of the reasons we are considered the most diverse city in the Bay Area. Right now, I would like to bring to you our mayor, who wants me to keep his bio very short, but he is the descendant of immigrants. His parents were immigrants. And he's also the first Filipino mayor in Vallejo, Mr. Bob Sapat.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. This is wonderful to see our diverse community represented here this evening. We have a lot of issues before us, and every time I turn on the news, I pick up a newspaper, turn on my computer, I see issues that surround we the people. And that's all of us, we the people. Vallejo is the most diverse community in the entire country, and we're blessed to be there. I'm very thankful of who we are, what we represent. I'm very thankful for the people that are here this evening that are concerned about the issues that are plaguing us. I'm very concerned about the new administration in Washington, D.C. I'm concerned about people of color, people of different orientations, people of different religions, people, because of our diversity, may be discriminated against by what I truly believe is unjust and unfair treatment of our society. I would encourage all of you to look at California Senate Bill 54, which may possibly make California a sanctuary state. I would also ask you to look at what State Superintendent of Schools, Tom Torlakson, said this morning. It was in this morning's paper, where he spoke specifically about schools being a safe haven. To have our young people afraid to go to school because they may be, quote, snatched up, to me is just absolutely appalling, and I cannot stand for that. I'm going to read you a proclamation that I authored after a very hateful call was made to the NAACP headquarters. A very close friend of mine, Linda Daniels, received this call. And I went down to listen to it. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Quite frankly, as a person of color, I listened to what was said. I had tears in my eyes because of the hate that was expressed. So I'm going to read this to you now, and I would ask that this coming Tuesday you attend the City Council meeting, because I will be reading this proclamation and presenting it to the NAACP. So, this proclamation is in support of human rights and honoring the City of Vallejo's diversity. And may I ask Council Member Berta Aliga to come up, if she would, please. And we will co-read this together. Sorry to put you on the spot, Council Member, but yeah, right, glasses. So I think it's only fitting that we do this together. I just thought it. Sorry. So I didn't want to put her on the spot, but I think this is something that she and I can read together for everyone. So I'll go ahead and start. Whereas Vallejo is the most diverse community in the country and celebrates its ethnicity, religious, and sexual orientation diversity at annual celebrations, and
whereas we, the people of Vallejo, will not discriminate on the basis of race, ethnicity, religion, national origin, sex, age, disability, gender identity, or sexual orientation, and
whereas we, the people of Vallejo, recognize the First Amendment of the United States Constitution as a mechanism to voice our concerns against unjust and illegal governmental mandates, and
whereas we will defend our right to express our displeasure against repressive actions, and
whereas we, the people of Vallejo, will stand in dignity and solidarity against hatred of any kind that is focused on any culture or group, and
whereas we, the people of Vallejo, will teach our children that hate fosters hate and cannot be tolerated in any society, and we support the Vallejo City Unified School District's resolution for safe haven zones, and whereas we, the people of Vallejo, believe that the words of our forefathers that said, "Justice for all and government for the people," ring true.
now therefore be it resolved that I, Bob Sampine, Mayor of the City of Vallejo, and the Vallejo City Council do hereby proclaim that the City of Vallejo supports human rights and honors our diversity as a community with strength and assets. Signed by me, Bob Sampine, and the Vallejo City Council. That said, I am truly pleased that we have a very distinguished panel up here this evening. There's a lot of folks that have a lot of questions about what's going on in our country. There are a lot of folks that have concerns about whether or not they're even safe to be here. I have Muslim neighbors, and they have become very close friends of ours. We invite them into our homes. My wife has a knitting club, and two of these Muslim ladies joined my wife's knitting circle. We talk with them on the phone. We broke bread together. I've been to a mosque, and as I looked in today's paper regarding wiretapping, am I going to see an unmarked vehicle parked in front of my street? Am I going to hear crackling on my phone lines? Do I have to concern myself because of two words that are always used when there are issues of people, of diversity? Those two words, national security, and it scares me. That said, thank you. Please enjoy this evening's presentation, and thank you to our panel. Thank you, Patricia, and Fighting Back Partnership.
Mr. Mayor, and I'd also like to mention he is an alum of Fighting Back Partnership. And also our city councilwoman supports it. She is one of our liaisons. Thank you. Thank you, you both. Next, I would like to bring up our board president, Dr. Brenda Tucker. She's an educator and also, I'll let her explain who she is. And she's going to give a welcome.
Say it like that, that means that you forgot. You don't. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure and an honor to truly be here, and I am so grateful to Attorney Alford in terms of coming up with the concept and the idea of doing this for this fabulous city. My name is Brenda Tucker. I am a professor and counselor at Solano Community College, and I'm also retired psychologist. In representing the board, I know I have Trustee Rosemary Thurston that's here. She's also a member of the board. Would you please stand? I may be missing, is there anyone else here from the board? I know that people had prior engagements and weren't able to make it today. We also have our angel in disguise that has been a member of the board for a very long time, but since she has progressed and left us, we still hanging on to her shirt tail, and that is Dr. Councilwoman Brenda Liga. She is also connected. Thank you so much. In representing the board, I'd like to say that we are excited today to offer such an exclusive and optimistic forum in which to discuss current immigration issues. We are honored to have an esteemed set of panelists that will be here in a collective voice to educate us, to give us insight, and to also help us become empowered. These are very challenging times, as the mayor has said, and I would like to break that up with saying that this is the only community that I can go to someone's house on Thanksgiving and have tamales, lumpia, and collard greens. But I also would like to just take just a few seconds to share with you, and I'm not going to go long because I did write something, when folks write out stuff, but I'm not going to take long. I'm going to go from memory, about the Fighting Back Partnership. We are in our 26th year of serving the community, fighting back. We have been servicing youth, families, and neighborhoods. And as I was telling our mayor, I wasn't there when he was connected to Fighting Back, but as I put it all together, it dawned on me. This man served as an officer, a police officer with rank, retired, and then humbled himself to go into the communities and knock on doors, north, south, east, Vallejo, to talk about public safety and how to take care of neighborhoods, and then of course progress to council person and mayor. So please get involved with Fighting Back, because you never know. Again, I'd like to say that our theme in Fighting Back is making a difference. We are here and have always been here for the community. There's a gospel song that I'm not going to complete, I cannot sing, that says, it would have been me, it should have been me, it could have been me, if it wasn't for. And Fighting Back, we then paraphrase that in saying that it could have been us. It would have been us. And it was some of us. If it had not been for individuals that I can see in this classroom that I can see in this audience that have made a difference. And as we continue on this battlefield, I'd like to say that if you can serve and can become a part of what we're doing, and most of you are doing it anyway, because you remember, Fighting Back work as a coalition. We work with other groups. We do not believe in working in silos. We believe in working with communities and empowering communities and offering and giving and sharing and doing whatever we can do. But if you're not able to serve in that way, then you may be able to give us some money. So in terms of whatever you can do, we appreciate that, but more than that, I am so grateful to have been asked to come and say welcome to this forum, and thanking Ms. Alford, Attorney Alford, the staff, and the community leaders that are here, because she didn't do it by herself. The community leaders that helped put this on, would you stand, please? Well, she's probably going to do at the end. Are they all outside? Raise your hand anyway. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because she did it in a very short period of time, but I can see that it has taken root. Again, I'll stop reading my notes, and I'm going to say that I'm turning the program back over to the hands of Attorney Alford. Thank you.
Before we have our next panel, as my staff is changing names, so we're going to switch off. I'd like to invite Nina up. She's also going to be a panelist, but she wants to introduce our chief to say a few words. And I also want to mention, in regards to what our panelists said, I worked for Congressman Miller for 15 years, and during those years I did immigration. And when you talk about criminalizing people who are caught in the middle, I remember there was a young man who was from Vallejo, and he was interning for our office for many years. And then when he decided to go to college, he applied for financial aid. And that is when the signals went off. He was, his family was accosted by ICE. He came to our office, he said, "Latrice, can you help me? I did not know that I was not a U.S. citizen. I came with my parents when I was 2. I lived with my aunt and my uncle because they wanted myself and my sister to have a better life." And he was a young man, he and his sister, caught in what is the criminalization of individuals, of people who, by no fault of his own, was told that he was, quote, illegal. There is no such thing as an illegal person. No such thing. And I spent 15 years explaining to people who would sit in front of me crying that you are not here illegally. There are people who are here illegally, but it's not you. You know what I mean? So I'm going to get off my soapbox, but thank you. So I'm asking Mina to come up. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Mina Diaz, and I will be one of the panelists, so you'll find out a little bit more about me. But what I want to do right now is to introduce to you someone that I admire quite a bit. I have the honor to introduce a person that I've been working very closely with in working with the Latino community and the community in general in Vallejo. The person that I feel that is a blessing to Vallejo, that has brought a new light to Vallejo, that cares and is doing everything that he and his department can do to make Vallejo a better place for everyone. So I'm going to ask you all to give a round of applause to our Chief Andrew Badu from the Police Department.
Well, thank you, Mina. As a police officer, I'm used to, not so nice of an introduction usually. I don't know how to handle that, but thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you for everybody for being here tonight. This was a great crowd. Mina and I actually just had a meeting, just coincidentally, actually, before I knew about this a couple days ago, and talking about ways to strategize to get the message out to our community to, help with some of those fears. Dr. Grip said earlier when you started talking about what's going on at the national level is making police look harder, and that's absolutely true. I mean, this is an example of it, quite frankly. I've been here in Vallejo for almost 3 years, and I see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd here, and so I think that a lot of you understand how we've been working really hard to make connections with the community. I'm hoping that's paying off now, and I hope that trust moves forward as we try to figure out new ways to make these connections. And so I'm going to just say a couple more sentences and I'll get out of your hair here. But I just want to be really clear. The Vallejo Police Department at the local level is not the immigration police. In fact, I looked back through our records It was kind of difficult because we switched the CAD system about 4 years ago, but we have not made an arrest on a local, nor do we. It's not even part of our equation. We will respond to community issues, crime issues, and do our business irrespective of immigration status. We have not booked anybody in the county jail. It's funny, we had this conversation, and I was actually, when Mina asked me and everybody knows Mina, she's very direct, it kind of threw me back because it's not even on our radar, quite frankly. And so we don't do that. It's not our job. It won't become our job. And so for those of you that know people that are afraid, please spread that word for us. Help us do that, and we're going to look at, like I said, additional ways to do that. So thank you all for being here tonight.
My name is Tom Cashman. I'm the Executive Director of Catholic Charities at Gilville and Solano. We have served low-income people and people in need in this community in Vallejo since 1942. And we've been doing immigration work for 24 years. And we work with Moses, who I guess will eventually come sit here to my right, and many of the people on this panel to help spread the word. Primarily, we work very much in the Catholic faith community and very strongly in the Hispanic-speaking community. We have 4 staff people on our staff that facilitate immigration work. We'll chat a little bit more later.
Thank you.
Is the mic on?
I don't think so. There we go.
Okay. I'm Antonio Medrano, Chicano, Latino, indigenous. My grandfather, Don Jesus, and my dad were born in Arizona. My dad says that my grandfather, Don Jesus, used to call about, he was Yaqui Apache. He says, we fought the Spanish, we fought the Mexicans, and then we ended up fighting the 7th Cavalry of the United States. We never gave up our land, they took it from us. So I think that strain runs through our family. I'm a retired community college and high school teacher, community activist in Contra Costa County and throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. I was very fortunate to have been elected to this position of chair of the Berkeley Northeast Bay chapter of the ACLU, Northern California, and now we're extending into Solano County. Prior to the election, in Northern California alone, we were 46,000. As of this morning, in a conversation with the San Francisco office where the lawyers are, we're now 96,000. Everywhere I go, I hear people, I'm going to renew, we have to stop what's happening in the United States. We give workshops on Know Your Rights in Spanish and in English. This morning, yesterday evening, I gave a workshop at Martin Luther King Elementary School in Richmond, California, right off Cutting Boulevard, to 4 parents who were really uneasy about declaring that they needed help. Then I returned to the same school this morning at 9:30 for an hour and a half and did another workshop. And I want to tell you the reaction of some of the people who took the workshop. I was teaching them how to say, I want to speak to my lawyer. They can say it in Spanish, quiero hablar con mi abogado. But we finished the training this morning and we had about 35 parents in the library at King Elementary School. And I stood up toward the end and I said, I'm now not Antonio Medrano, your friend and comrade, but I represent ICE. And they all stood up and yelled in a voice, I want to speak to my lawyer. And a comment was made earlier about the Nazi death camps. I'm going to quote Elie Wiesel, a noted historian, Jewish, who escaped the horrific death camps in Germany. When he was asked about the word illegal, he made the following statement. I'm going to say it in Spanish first, then I will translate it into English. Ningún ser humano es ilegal. Los seres humanos pueden ser bonitos y muy bonitos o muy guapos. Pueden ser flaquitos o gorditos. Pueden estar equivocados o no. Pero ilegal, ¿cómo puede ser un ser humano ilegal? In English, for those of you who are bilingual. No human being is illegal. Human beings can be beautiful or even more beautiful. They can be fat or skinny. They can be right or wrong. But illegal? How can a human being be illegal? Eileen Wiesel. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Armel Molinas. I first of all want to say Happy International Working Women's Week.
Yes.
My name is Armel Molinas. I'm actually an immigrant as well. I came here in the U.S. when I was 6 years old. I'm a product of Vallejo, so I'm coming full circle. I went to school at Cooper School Elementary, Vallejo Junior, Vallejo Senior High, class of '98, and I went out to UC Davis, got my education, and now I'm an organizer, freedom fighter in the Bay Area. And just to say that I'm a product of an immigrant family. Actually, my mom is in the audience right now. Mom, you want to raise your hand? That normally we don't see, the folks that are in the shadows, that don't have the spotlight, and are actually living in fear, from the two panelists we're talking about in the morning, or in the earlier panel. So I've come a long way, and it's like really full circle for me. I haven't been in this building in like 20 plus years. So it's pretty amazing to see you all here on Friday night. And just to say, I'm representing Powys East Bay, which is the People's Association of Workers and Immigrants. We actually have two worker members. You want to raise your hand? Ati Melba and Ati Honor. Do a better job than that. Give a round of applause for the workers. They are the common heroes and sheroes that are in the fight, in the face of this, the trenches of the work right now. And basically, we're an organization that came out of 9/11, where the U.S. Patriot Act really attacked immigrants, undocumented immigrants, and as a result, Powys was born. And from there, a lot of airport screeners were wrongfully attacked because of the immigration status, and because of that, they formed this organization, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we're part of Migrante Northern California, which is a migrant workers organization. It's an organization that spreads all across the country, connecting it to the migrant workers organization in the Philippines. So I'm honored to be here today. Again, there's amazing organizations that are doing solid work on the ground, and workers that are fighting for their rights. And like what the panelists said in the beginning, is that we are many, and we are vibrant. And challenging times, challenges are empowered and collective resilience. I'll end up right there.
Hi, good evening everyone. My name is Aurora Victoria David, A.B. David. I am also an immigrant from the Philippines. Came here when I was 15, from Pampanga to Daly City, here in California. My mom was also in the audience, so. I'm here today representing NAFCON, the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns. It's an alliance of over 30 organizations across the country, and it also started, Powys and Migrante were actually also a founding member of NAFCON, one of the organizations that started it in 2003 after the 9/11 when Filipino airport screeners were laid off because they're not citizens. And all over the country, we saw that Filipino organizations on the ground have reports of community members being attacked and being scapegoated for what happened. And so we saw a need to really form an alliance and build a network to build the Filipino immigrant rights movement in this country. So since 2003, we've been working on the immigrant rights movement, and we've also connected what we've been doing here to issues in the Philippines. So one of the things that we actually do is also fight for environmental justice in the Philippines, in terms of when typhoon disasters hit the Philippines, raising relief, such as for Typhoon Haiyan, which I think a lot of community members helped out. So that's what NAFCON is about. I'm excited to share more later.
Yes, good evening. Most of you already know me, but I'm going to briefly explain to you who I am and what I do here in the community. My name is Mina Diaz, and I am the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants. We arrived in the United States when I was 5 years old. I've lived in Vallejo over 33 years. I am a retired employment case manager from Contra Costa County Employment and Human Services Department.
And I'm also the founder and the director of the Diaz and Noera Centro Latino. This is the only Latino resource center in Vallejo, and we service all of Solano County. We've been very busy. We've been having, over the past years, immigration workshops. Now with everything that's going on with the administration, we have done quite a bit of Know Your Rights and community circles. And the difference between both of those is in Know Your Rights, we're explaining to people what their rights are, how to stand up for themselves, and how to stand up for their neighbors. In the community circle, we're bringing everybody together to discuss ideas and ways that we can help each other, and they're both working quite well. We're also working very diligently with Catholic Charities in doing naturalization clinics. In fact, today we had Catholic Charities at the Centro, and they helped quite a few people complete their paperwork for naturalization because it's very important, as the attorney mentioned. I had a green card for a very long time. I at no time consider myself an illegal anything. I am a person that contributes like a lot of people do. You know, we come here to work, we don't come here to take anything. So the fact that we're trying to be criminalized, and not just Latinos, but everybody else, is shameful and it's hurtful. And not just to us, but to everybody, because they come for us today, they might come for you tomorrow. And it's very important that people understand that and that we work together. So at the Centro, we do plenty of other workshops. We do tutoring for children that do not speak English. We want to help them get on their feet, because I was one of them. The last hat that I wear is that I'm the director and one of the founders for the Ser Latino program at Vallejo City Unified School District. And Ser Latino stands for Service Education Resources, Servicio, Educación y Recursos. What we're trying to do is to help the Latino students, along with their parents, understand the educational system here in the United States. It's very different from other countries, and when you come here and you don't speak the language, and your parents don't speak the language, you encounter a lot of barriers, a lot of difficulties, and you end up being the interpreter at the age of 6 and 7 like I was. It made me stronger, and as you said, attorney, sometimes the hardships that we have and the problems that we encounter are only opportunity to grow. I'm very proud of everything that I do because it's me in every single way. My parents feel so proud that a little girl that didn't speak English is now helping hundreds and hundreds of people every single day. You too can help. If we all unite, if we all work together, whatever your beliefs are, we don't have to agree 100%, but I'm assuming that most of you will agree with me that a human being is important and that we all want the same things. We all have basic needs. Our children are all important. I am a mother of 3 adult children and the grandmother of a 2-year-old. And that in itself gives me the strength that I need. Some people might not have that. Some people might need you as their neighbor, as your employer, as your friend. Think, educate yourself, and help other people. Now, voy a preguntar si hay alguien aquí que no hable inglés, porque todo el taller se ha hecho en inglés. Is there anybody here that does not speak English? Because this whole program has been done in English. So there's a few of you. I'm going to be very brief, Latricia, but I want to mention what we're talking about. So, es importante para mí decirles a ustedes que están aquí en su propio idioma, porque todo esto se ha hecho en inglés y yo no quiero que ustedes se sientan que no son parte de eso. Yo me llamo Mina Díaz, yo soy la directora y fundadora del Díaz y Noera Centro Latino y tenemos varios diferentes talleres. Cuando termine, vengan a conmigo y les digo exactamente los servicios que estamos haciendo y cómo estamos ayudando a la gente. Yo soy una hija de inmigrantes de México, llegamos aquí cuando tenía yo 5 años. También soy retirada del Departamento de Empleo y Servicios Humanos. Trabajé ahí como una especialista de ayudar a personas a conseguir empleo. Soy la directora y fundadora del programa Ser Latino, Servicios, Educaciones y Recursos, que está en las 2 high schools, en la Vallejo High School de Jesse Bethel, para ayudarles a ustedes y a sus hijos a que entiendan el sistema educacional en este país para que sus hijos progresen. El panel que ellos tienen aquí son varias personas que contribuyen aquí. Las 2 personas que estaban anteriormente, uno es un abogado, el otro es un pastor que también tiene varias diferentes organizaciones. Cuando termine, para no tomar mucho tiempo, si quieren vengan conmigo y ya yo les explico de qué se trató esto para que entiendan un poquito más. Y disculpen que no hubo traducción, perdónennos por eso. I mentioned that at the end of this session, because we don't have Spanish interpretation, that please come up to me and I will explain to them everything that took place. I apologize that you have not been able to understand what is being said, but I want you to know that you're important, and I will explain it to you afterwards. Thank you.
I came to this country about 30 years ago, and I still retain my accent for a reason. I wanted to make sure that I remain true to who I am, and came here, and 30 years later, I went to law school, received my law degree, went back to school, did my MBA. So then, several years back, I decided to start a business. Like most immigrants, we work hard, contrary to what Trump might tell you. We work very hard. So I started my own business, help people launch their own dream, work with nonprofits and small businesses, and work with executives. So I've actually helped folks realize their American dream, that this president is struggling to understand what it's all about. And so several years later, there was a guy named Obama that decided to run for office, and I can tell you that I'm very proud to say I was involved in his campaign and running his campaign in the whole country. And as an immigrant, there are certain things you dream about, but I share these thoughts with folks. I never dream about that I will receive a call from the White House to come have lunch with the president. It wasn't something that, I was like, you sit down and say, oh yeah, that will happen one day, right? And then I received the call, and funny thing, I was in the bathroom. And seriously, and my wife was outside, and then after my phone call, I just screamed. And then she said, what's the problem? I said, I just got a call. I'm going to be having lunch with the president. She thought it was a joke. But that was a product of hard work. It was a product of someone coming here, having a dream, and then having a plan. And that's what I try to teach most people that I encounter. It's okay to have a dream, but you have to have a plan to go with that dream. So I think many of us on this panel today will probably share some of those good stories with you, but we work hard to reach where we are today. I teach business in college. I'm an advocate for immigrants. In fact, last month I organized, my pastor had to remind me, it's the first any rally in the whole Bay Area for immigrants, Muslim community. I actually attended the mosque in Richmond the Friday before. I sat there for over an hour. What I saw from that mosque was love. The Imam talked about love. He talked about loving the president, same president that wants to deport immigrants. He preached about, forgiving the president. So after that, I spoke to my pastor. I said, this is really amazing. You would think that would come from a church, but it was coming from a mosque. And that's really what Muslims are all about. I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian. But what we need to stop doing is the fear of the unknown. If you have the chance, visit a mosque. Get to know what they talk about, what they preach. And I think we're going to have a very robust conversation here. But the beautiful thing about the event we had in Richmond, we brought groups together. Typically, they don't work together. The Richmond Progressive Alliance, the Black Women Organized for Political Action, the Latina Center, and we brought pastors and imams and rabbis together, and we had a great night. So that's what we're looking for. We're trying to bring our communities together and stop hating, just love each other. Like you said, love is more powerful than hate, so let's love each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have the first question, and I'm going to read it off, and then I'm going to ask that each one of you take a few minutes with your answers or your experiences in your communities. The first question is, what are the 3 main issues that the undocumented people and families in your communities are facing? So la pregunta que estoy preguntando al panel es, ¿Cuáles son las tres cuestiones principales que ustedes están viendo en gente indocumentada y familias indocumentadas en sus comunidades? We can start with Mr. Tom Cashman.
Well, what we want to, can you hear me now? I don't know if you did hear me
Yes.
earlier. Mainly, it's getting the word out effectively to people that there are services available. We do a lot of work in both Yolo County and in this county, and we focus a lot of our energy in working through the Catholic networks and then our associated organizations to help us spread the word. It really is, it's getting people to act on the information that they then learn, because there is the levels of fear, and to give people comfort. Also, to let them know that there are services that can be provided through citizenship and processing that do not have to be outrageously expensive, and to counteract the actions of notarios. So we want to make sure that people, that word spreads. Because we often know that they've already paid an enormous amount of money. And if we've been able to get the word to them sooner, that could have been avoided.
Thank you. Antonio Medrano.
El miedo, the fear. When I was asked to speak at the evening at King Elementary School in Richmond off of Cutting, working class area, I was expecting 30, 35. And I was told by the adult school teachers, tienen miedo, they're afraid to come out. Because somebody in the community is saying, no vayan, porque va a llegar la migra. Don't go because the ice will be there. So we're fighting that rumor that floats in the community. Two, una falta de información, a lack of information. And that's where we come in, we provide that. We provide Know Your Rights in schools. 2 Sundays back, we were expecting 35 at St. Mark's Catholic Church in the gym, and 200 people showed up. So we decided internally that we're going to do, if somebody is afraid to come out publicly, call me, we'll set up a house gathering, and I'll go to somebody's house. I've done 4 of those already. In El Cerrito, Berkeley, and Richmond. Sit down, usually over some really strong coffee, and discuss cuáles son tus derechos, qué debe de uno hacer cuando se acerca la migra o la policía, and we work it out with them. And also give them the handouts that you see on the table outside, the cards. I know Ali and I have been struggling over this, but at one point I had 800 of these red cards. I'm now down to, Ali, I'm now down to 18. You can't have them, never mind. But this is important. Tell people that they have rights and know who they can call. Privately, or we can do it in a group, no problem. Easy. Gracias.
Armel, thank you.
So I would say 3 main things that are some of the root causes of why people, or some things they're experiencing by immigrants are. 1 is the extreme poverty that they come from in their homeland. 2 is isolation and fear that's bred because of this moment. And 3 is exploitation and disempowerment. So many of these immigrants come from poor countries like Mexico, the Philippines, that have no jobs. People would really risk their lives and their families to come here for better opportunities. And a lot of that is rooted on the fact that there's landlessness in our homeland, in the Philippines particularly. And there's also unequal relations between, in terms of where the resources go. The resources extracted from our homeland doesn't get served and benefit the people in the Philippines. So obviously people leave in droves. 6,000 Filipinos leave the country every day. Today, 6,000 Filipinos left to look for work all across the world. And then Filipinos also work, when they work here, hardworking, they send $20 billion in remittances from all around the world to keep the economy afloat in the Philippines. So extreme poverty is really deep in our country and in other third world places, as well as the warfare, refugees in Syria, Iraq, and Iran, Afghanistan. So that's definitely one of the root causes. 2 is isolation and fear. That's been kind of unanimous here in this panel. that many caregivers and undocumented folks are in isolation. They work in care homes. There's no interface with other workers. So the exploitation is really, really deep, and that fear is really, really deep. So it really makes a lot of the workers not want to fight back. And they don't know their rights, they don't know who to turn to, and there's a lot of hysteria. I've heard some stories of even caregivers not wanting to take pictures and are changing their Facebook profile because of not wanting to be found out by ICE. And then lastly, I would say exploitation and disempowerment. Exploitation because of their status, the fact that they have no papers, the risk of exploitation is really, really high. So a lot of facilities, care home owners exploit these workers. So don't give them the proper pay, traffic them, withhold their passports, withhold them from being able to see their families for years at a time. You can imagine they're here to work hard, like my mom was, right? And if you're not connected to an organization, you're not connected to a people's organization, you're not connected to your family members, you're not connected to other workers and folks that can really fight for you, it drives isolation, alienation, and fear. So I'll talk a little bit about what people are doing actually in the next round in terms of how people are fighting back.
Aurora?
So for NAFCON, the issues that we've been hearing for our community, kind of like just, what's been said is like the threat of deportation. Like we've held community forums like this one in the past, and one of the questions from community members like, should we pack up our stuff and leave? And there's really a threat. There's really a fear coming from the community members because of their status, and if they can be just deported anytime. And with that, even Philippine officials in Washington D.C. have said that because of the ramping up of Trump with his immigration enforcement, that there's actually 300,000 names that they've already gotten, Philippine officials from the department, from DHS, that are up for deportation. Filipinos, 300,000 Filipinos from the U.S. that are up for deportation. And also for Filipinos here is livelihood. As Armel said, Filipinos are here because there's no jobs in the Philippines. And so once there's also threat of finding livelihood and employment here in this country, then they don't know where to get the money to send back to their families in the Philippines. And so some of them are actually victims of trafficking. These are Filipinos who were promised by agencies in the Philippines and also employers in the U.S. of jobs in this country, but when they get to this country, there's no jobs, and the contracts are being violated. And so there's this fear of not having employment so that they can actually send money back home to their families. And in terms of employment, there's also Filipinos who are facing wage theft. They don't know their rights about minimum wage, and so we do a lot of education around minimum wage laws and overtime pay. But yeah, there's a lot of Filipinos who've come forward who are victims of wage theft. And lastly is also for Filipino immigrants is just the issues going on in the Philippines. As we said, poverty in the Philippines pushed them here in this country. And so, when prices in the Philippines of gas, of basic goods, of education for the children go up, that's affecting them here in the U.S. And all they're thinking of is, how do I raise more money to send back to my family back home? So it's also the conditions in our home country that are also in the mind of immigrants.
Thank you.
Where to start? There's so many different issues that immigrants face, but I've narrowed it down to the three that you want. I think that one of the main ones is fear, and I'm going to focus more on local, what I see here in Vallejo, what I see in the county. Fear of separation from their kids, fear of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, fear of driving to the store, not knowing if you're going to be able to go back to your house. Fear of the uncertainty. Nobody can live that way. You and I, we wouldn't be able to live that way. I know I wouldn't. Maybe you can. I can't. So fear is very important, and they're starting to put packets together. We talked to them in an envelope. They decided to put birth certificates, a letter notarized, for a family member that's going to be able to take care of the kids, immunization records, any medications that the kids take. Could you imagine doing that? Could you imagine you having one child, 3, 4 children, and every single day thinking where you left that envelope in case you're picked up and who you're going to call to take your kids, to keep your kids, and a notarized letter so that if you decide that they take them to you in the country that you're going to be deported to. Some of these kids don't even speak the language of their countries. Some of these kids have never been outside of this country. Some of them came like me when I was 5. And then you've got the fear of the mixed families. Mom, 2 kids, undocumented, father, 1 child, legal residents, U.S. citizens. Is it right to divide families? No, it's not, but that's a different issue. That fear is one of the main things that we hear. Harassment, discrimination. Just here in this city, we had a teacher at Vallejo City Unified School District who the day after the election told a student, a 14-year-old student, are you ready? Have you packed your bags? Because you're being sent back to Mexico. Yes, it happened here. It was a big deal, but he's still working. He's still working in the school district. He was suspended, I think, administrative leave, I think is what they call it. But he's still there, and she's still there too. So that in itself is wrong. I get so many calls from the tenants that the landlords are threatening them to call immigration if they complain that something needs to be fixed by code enforcement, if they don't pay, a large increase in the rents. Yeah, that's happening too, here in Vallejo, not far away, here. So could you imagine how it is in other places? And the third thing would be lack of education and understanding what's going on. When you don't speak the language, that's even one more barrier. I have a hard time understanding this president and all his, somebody needs to take the crayons away from him and have him stop signing, because we're having a hard time keeping up and educating people faster than he can sign executive orders. So that in itself is something that's very discouraging for us. Now, we do everything that we do at the center, but we've also decided to take this as a road show, as Mr. Antonio mentioned. So we've been invited by La Clínica La Raza here in Vallejo. We're going to be giving a presentation to their staff, the doctors, the CNAs, the receptionists, all of them, and then they're going to put together a time for us to go back and do a presentation to the patients. We've gone to St. Vincent's Church. We travel. You get a couple of people together at a yard, in your house, and I'll give me a Corona, and I'll be there and give you what we know. I'm trying to keep some humor in this, but this is very scary. This is very scary for all of us. And I too am a U.S. citizen. I'm blessed. I love both countries. I was taught by my father that this is the country of opportunity. This is the country that helps us feed our families and gives us so much. But I also love my own country because that's where I was born. I have a special love in my heart for Mexico. Nobody should have to go through what the people are going through right now. Nobody. And I know I mentioned it a lot. I sound like a broken record, but I'm trying to reach your hearts and I'm trying to reach your conscience so that you too can work with me and everybody else and change things for the better. Could be your grandkids one day, You don't know what your daughters and your sons, who they're going to marry, who they're going to have babies from. You don't know. Be careful. Thank you.
It looks like everyone here has touched on some of the issues here, but I think language barrier is a big deal when we are dealing with immigrants. Not every immigrant speaks English, so there you have a huge gap, and typically those gaps affects whether you are afraid or not. Your lack of knowledge affects everything. So language barrier is something that I have seen over the years working as an advocate or from a business or teaching. It's always been a big deal for our immigrants. It's really navigating that. The second thing is education. I think when we talk about education, most people focus on traditional education. But in the 21st century, we really need to focus on educating our folks, whether they're immigrants or non-immigrants, on really what matters. I know folks who get passionate about educating folks or teaching certain things, but we have to teach folks stuff that can help them get a job. And that's a big deal. know, and that the gap is always existing there because people finish school and then they cannot actually get a job. So if we focus on really educating people on what makes sense in the 21st century, I think we will actually be doing them a big favor. So the third one is it's really job training. I serve on Richmond Workforce Investment Board, and so I deal with businesses on a daily basis. One of the biggest challenges we have, and this might sound like something you probably won't have, but it's a fact. We cannot find skilled workforce to fill jobs. So, and there are too many folks out there looking for jobs, too many folks out there willing to do work, and yet we cannot train them. And this is something that our elected officials. We have to do better. A lot of talks, but really no plan, no strategy, no action. People are out there looking for jobs, so let's train them on what matters. Let's train them on skills that they can use to provide for their family. I guarantee you this, if you provide folks job training, they don't want your government benefits. They don't. So let's train them. If you train them, then you can make noise. When you don't train them, stop making noise about people being lazy. They have not seen an immigrant that is lazy. Train them. When you train them, then you can talk. Thanks.
What happens to their children? What should you say or do? And can they call a lawyer? ¿Qué pasa cuando si su familia o alguien de su familia es recogido por ICE? ¿Qué pasa con sus niños? ¿Qué debo de decir? Y debo de llamar a un abogado. So whoever wants to address that.
One, we're addressing that, number one. And working in conjunction with the Immigrant Legal Resource Center in San Francisco and the ACLU throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. All parents should, as the senora spoke earlier, record the names of your students. What kind of illnesses do they have? Do they need any kind of special medical attention? And two, already now, look up a lawyer. When you say, I want to speak to a lawyer, give them one of the yellow cards or the red card or a blue card and say, these are my rights. Now, they should make those contacts now. Don't wait until you're picked up or stopped by a police officer or an ICE agent. Someone, persona de confianza, have someone that you know who you can trust, give them the names, birthdays, all the information. So if something happens, they can take care of the individuals. And you get the letter notarized, giving somebody else authorization to act on your behalf. But they got to start now. They got to come to these know your rights now. No mañana, but now. And we're giving them throughout the Bay Area. Call us, we'll set up a session with you.
Nina?
Yes, as far as what happens to the children, I'm not a lawyer, an attorney, but I've been doing some research, and if I worked with Child Protective Services for a while, so I'm guessing the same similar thing happens. So they first would probably look for a family member to take care of the children. But a lot of folks are here and don't have family members, so I was told that foster care would be the next option. To ensure that these kids are safe, and I'll have any of the attorneys here maybe address this since we're not too familiar. But it is important that they have information in place so that these kids don't suffer and can be helped too. Okay, good.
Guest appearance. Hi again. I'll be very brief. So for the children, one of the important things is, as the panelists have discussed, having a safety plan in advance. And a key part of a safety plan is to make sure that at the school that your child attends, every school has a list of emergency contacts that your children are allowed to be released to. So make sure right now you go to your school, to your children's schools, and make sure to put people that you trust in case something goes wrong on that list so that they can come pick up your kids, so that you can bypass the Child Protective Services and the foster care system. That's very important. Every case is different, so it's difficult, but as a practical matter, what happens if somebody gets arrested by ICE is that they will get taken to San Francisco, to 630 Sansom Street, okay? And they'll be processed there generally overnight. So you can have a lawyer go there to 630 Sansom and try to talk to your family member and ask for a bond hearing as soon as possible. And that may allow us to keep the case in San Francisco. And also, family members can go and are usually granted visits there at 630 Sansom, but I would recommend that only family members that have their papers completely in order go there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the other thing you can actually do is to have a lawyer on a retainer, and sometimes it doesn't cost you a lot of money to do that. You can actually give Ali $1 and say, Ali, I retain you as my lawyer. So when there's problems, you can actually reach out to Ali. But, it's always good to have some planning. Don't just, expect everything to go well. Expect the worst sometimes. So plan.
Can I just also add real quick? Sure. I know some of the responses has been like talking to a lawyer, and absolutely we need legal support. But I also want to advocate for getting organized ourselves and being empowered by ourselves, and really knowing our rights, right? So what we do is Know Your Rights training is what we teach our workers and our caregivers is that you do not need to open the doors. You have rights. If they knock on your doors, law enforcement or ICE knocks on your doors, you have every right to not open the door. Choose your right to remain silent. Ask, am I being arrested or am I free to go? If you are being arrested, you're choosing your right to remain silent. Just slip them this card and say, I want to talk to my lawyer. And then do not sign anything. Report and record what happened and tell your family members. And then the big thing is fighting back. So I would say a lot of the advocacy is around connecting to a lawyer or somebody who legally connected or fighting for a policy. Absolutely connect. That's absolutely legitimate ways to fight back. And we need to organize our families. We need to organize our block. We need to organize within people's organizations like Migrante, Vallejo, and Wayside United Methodist Church, connecting to our different organizations on the ground and empower ourselves so that we know what our rights are.
I have one more thing to add. This strange instrument. There's an app from the ACLU, it's called Mobile Justice App. From Google or the App Store, download it. You'll see an image of the ACLU. You take a picture of any police activity or ICE activity. You take a picture of it, a copy of it goes instantly to the offices in San Francisco to be reviewed by a lawyer. ICE and cops hate it. Take it.
Thank you. Next question.
The app is on the back table, outside.
Next question. How about those that have aged out of DACA? La pregunta es, ¿qué pasa con gente que ya no es elegible para DACA por edad?
That's a lawyer question.
Well, it depends on the situation. If somebody has aged out of DACA, again, I know this answer isn't always popular, but it really does depend on the individual situation. So even if somebody feels like they've aged out of DACA, I think it's important that they seek out legal advice before things go wrong, because even if they are no longer eligible for DACA, there may be other programs for which they may be eligible. So don't give up is the key. There's often a way, and immigrants are hard workers and are optimists. We're optimists, and all of us come from immigrants who have left a country and are courageous and have come here for a better life. And those people can find a way. So don't give up.
Thank you. Next question. Who offers free immigration attorney help here in Vallejo? ¿Quién ofrece abogado de inmigración aquí en Vallejo gratis?
I'll answer that, kind of. Catholic Charities does not have attorneys, but they provide a lot of services, and the fees are based on the income, so it's a sliding scale. So they do a lot of different things, and I'll have the director address that more, but we at the Centro refer a lot of people there. We're always looking for new places to refer people to, but as far as free, nothing that I know of. Do you want to answer
On the
that?
table outside, you'll see a 4-page flyer here that enumerates the range of services that we do provide, and then when we do need to advise people of an attorney, we have a list of people that we can refer you to. But there are quite a number of citizenship-related services here and processing services that we can provide and advise before sending you to an attorney.
I also have a list of lawyers for profit and nonprofit that I can make available to the table.
The lawyer has the library does, Solano County Library System has a free attorney. I don't know if they specialize in immigration, but they do have.
And then also, your congressman's office should be of assistance. That's one thing that I did when I worked for Congressman Miller. So Mike Thompson is the congressman here. And I actually would go, Congressman Miller allowed me to go like way above what I should have been doing. But I've also gone into the detention centers. And I've gone to hearings at congressional aid with individuals. And one thing that I used to advise people to do is if they ever had to go before a hearing judge, to get references and letters of support from their pastors, from family members, people in the community. And I would go to court and advocate for individuals. And I actually once forgot I was working for a congressman. I couldn't be an attorney. I actually wrote a brief. That was pretty good, and the judge scolded me, but it worked. It helped the individual. So I would suggest that also go to your congressman. It's free, it's confidential, and they do have an aide who works in immigration.
And I'm sorry, I think this is important, so I'll just very briefly say, as you can see, there aren't a lot of free legal services for immigrants, unfortunately, currently existing, sounds like, in Vallejo. That is something that is in our power to change, okay? So both on the county level, many counties, Alameda County just passed an incredible program for a rapid response network where there's a hotline that a family can call if there's ICE contact or somebody gets arrested, and then there will be people that go through and confirm that that happened so that they can let the community know without spreading panic. And in the meantime, an attorney will be sent to 630 Sansom to be there waiting when your family member or loved one gets there to provide legal help. Now that's currently in Alameda County, but that's something that you can work on here in Solano County. And furthermore, there's several state bills, as we're talking about your congressman, that are pending right now. One of them specifically is Senate Bill 6 here in California, which would provide everybody that's in immigration detention and potentially everyone in California that is facing removal proceedings with a free state-funded attorney. This is the biggest silver lining that I can think of from this presidency, and we have to make sure that our state passes this really important bill. So call your congressman and make sure that that happens.
Thank you.
I just want to also reiterate the importance of also communicating and connecting to community organizations. So for example, here in Vallejo, we do have Migrante Vallejo, but in terms of the campaigns and even legal resources that NAFCON has, as I said earlier, we are an alliance of different organizations US-wide, and we've had trafficking victims as far as New Orleans come for help, and we don't even have an NAFCON chapter there. But because of community support and organizations talking to each other across the country, we were able to find lawyers who were able to help victims of trafficking in New Orleans, hotel workers in Florida, even though we don't have organizations there. So I think also connecting to community organizations who are ready to help and find legal resources for you is also important.
Thank you. Next question. Recently in the news, they stated that DACA is no longer protected. Students are scared to go to school. What can they do? Recientemente en las noticias estaban diciendo de que DACA ya no está protegida. Los estudiantes tienen miedo a ir a la escuela. ¿Qué se puede hacer?
Just to reiterate, I keep saying is to get organized. We got to get organized. Isolation is our weakest link, right? When I remember hearing unity and solidarity is our strongest powerful currency in this moment of hysteria. So once we get connected, we get organized, we connect with different churches and organizations, connecting with our neighbors and our families, you're not isolated and you're not alone. And it's not just about talking about it and having educations and panels, but it's actually fighting back. So it's like waging campaigns so that you're able to shift policies that really impact immigrants. It's in Oakland, in the Big East Bay, they created a group text system where they know an ICE van is coming, they send a text to the central point, and I think that's what the comment over here was talking about, that it informs everybody in the community that ICE is there, avoid this neighborhood, avoid this street, here are some legal references that are gonna come and get connected. I know some churches are participating in sanctuary churches, where they're fighting back and figuring out ways how churches can be a sanctuary place, as well as sanctuary schools. I know people are fighting back. I was at the airport, at the SFO airport when they filed the deportation, the travel ban. So there's a lot of ways, I think, in our isolation and in our own homes, and when we're just stuck in our Facebook and our Twitter and our Snapchat, we get isolated in terms of what to do. But when we reach out, that human connection is really, really deep, and that's something that cannot be penetrated. So when we're in unity and we organize, it's a powerful moment.
I wanted to pick up on what you were saying about sanctuary, because there may be people here tonight who do not find themselves at this moment at risk, and you're wondering, what can I do? If you're part of a faith community, you can have conversations within your community about how that can be a safe space for persons who are living with fear. We use the term sanctuary to mean safe space. Now, it means you're putting yourself at risk, so you have to be aware of that. But so far, federal agents have not violated sanctuary or safe space. So you become a helpful presence. Sanctuary is defined here where properties are designated as religious communities or churches, mosques, temples, synagogues, shrines. Religious space historically, traditionally, but not necessarily legally, have not been violated by federal agents. So you may want to have conversations within your congregations about what it means to be a sanctuary community. I'm going to out my friend June and Ann because they're here and they know something about that. So I'm going to out you just a little bit if they're a reference in your community. Conversations about what it means to use your religious community as sanctuary for persons whose lives really are at risk, particularly those persons who have been designated for deportation, is a helpful way that you can be a service to persons and families whose lives are at risk and live with fear. Sanctuary is really a helpful way to do that.
I have a comment about that. The schools need to be organized. With a little pushing from the ACLU, our school district of 39,000 students is offering 3 large gatherings of Know Your Rights. Sponsored by the ACLU, the school district, the Lawyers Guild, the Latina Center. And the word is already getting out. For example, one of our high schools, Richmond High, is like 98% Latino. They've already said, we, including myself, will stand in front of the school and defy ICE to try to enter. And our superintendent has said, I will be there with you. So once you get that kind of support, I would ask your school district here in Vallejo, have they taken that step of offering free classes in Know Your Rights? If they haven't, talk to my compañero here, talk to me, and we'll organize something for them.
And I just wanted to add, in terms of the question about going to school, I think it's important to know what your school's policies are and what your school district's policies are. And in terms of sanctuary, there's sanctuary movements that aren't simply focused in the faith realm, but also for school districts, for city councils, and for counties. So that's something very real that you can do, and you have a right to know, and you have a right to demand answers from your elected city council members and your school board members of whether your schools are sanctuary schools, and if they're not, why not? And you can make that happen.
I'd like to speak about that a little bit more. Our school here in the Vallejo City Unified School District has adopted a Safe Haven resolution. And this happened in February, and it was really important. It was a decision that they decided to make. The superintendent is on board with us. We take our children's safety very, very seriously. We have a board right now that I couldn't be happier with, because they really are trying to do what's right as far as defending our kids. So the sanctuary that was mentioned at the faith communities, I totally agree with you. We will be presenting to the city council to try and make Vallejo sanctuary city. And I know that people have different, feelings about this, and I might not be popular by being the one that brings it forward, but I will be bringing it forward, and then we will see what the city council does. Anybody that's an elected official needs to be held accountable, whether they're at the city level, county, state, or federal. They're there because we put them there, and they can be taken out when we take them out. So they need to understand that in a city as diverse as Vallejo is, okay, with the population that we have, that's so mixed, so rich, so wonderful, this is something that is needed. People look at us as the most diverse city. Well, let's go ahead and start the movement. Let's start the movement.
Thank you. Now, the next question is in regards to Title I-407. Is a document that allows permanent residency, otherwise known as a green card, to be revoked from a U.S. citizen. Where might you encounter this document, and what are any further implications? So, esta pregunta es del título I-407, que es un documento de que están diciendo de que puede revocar la residencia de una persona, y quieren saber a dónde es que uno tal vez encuentra este problema o esta situación.
I'd like to say something brief about that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is something that just recently has become kind of popular. I'm getting a lot of folks coming to the Centro nervous about this. It appears that at some different locations, whether they be airports or the crossing on the border, these forms have somehow reached some of the immigrant community members. When you consider a person that's an elderly person that is getting on an airplane that does not speak English, that sometimes do not read and write, and in between the documents that you're giving them to complete that are customs document as far as what they're bringing back into the country, if they have plants, animals, more than $10,000, if that form is slipped in there, which is what I'm understanding is happening, and I can't attest to it, but this is what I'm hearing, people are filling these forms out or asking the stewardess to fill them out and then signing them. And this is a very, very sneaky and untruthful way of having people turn in their green card. Now let's be a little bit realistic. There's people dying to cross that border, not just the Mexican border, but the Canadian border. There's people flying here from all over the different parts of the world. Who in their right mind would give back their green card? Unless something's going on where you're going to be deported, or there could be things that I might be overlooking. But this form has been known to be out there, and it's just another way that we're trying to be eliminated from being here.
So I actually wasn't aware that this form is being used currently. It is an abandonment of lawful permanent residency form. And exactly as Ms. Diaz stated, it's a sneaky attempt to get people to sign away their rights. So again, you have the right not to sign any documentation without consultation with a lawyer. You have the right to remain silent and not sign such documentation. So make sure that you understand those things, and if anything like this happens, make sure to report it as soon as possible.
So the document you are referring to here is not new. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the document is not new. So that when you have a new president with a new policy, so now you have immigration officers actually trying to use it. In the previous administration, those things were not being used as much. But for me, I've gone through the process of having a green card and a citizen. So I've been exposed to all these issues. But one thing I said earlier is really about educating folks. You really need to know your rights. If you can't understand something, ask someone else to interpret it for you. If you're an immigrant, sometimes asking a lawyer to do something for you for $400 is worth it. Instead of doing stuff or signing something in a way that you're not even aware of or understand what it means. And sometimes the lawyers will not even charge you, just ask questions. And please, every one of you here, as you live here, you have to communicate with immigrants that you know. That's really the key here. You have the knowledge, they may not have the knowledge. So sharing the knowledge helps them. So truly, you have to share the knowledge, you have to help them out by communicating.
Just to share a couple of legal organizations in San Francisco. Asian Law Caucus in San Francisco is an amazing organization. They do pro bono work, working with immigrant folks. Apilo, Asian Pacific Islander Legal Outreach. Also, Centro Legal de la Raza in Oakland, the National Lawyers Guild, as well as Oakland Law Collaborative in Oakland. A lot of my connections are in Oakland and San Francisco, but I'm sure if you call them up, they can refer to some folks out here.
Can I also answer that question? The document is not new. And what I used to tell people when they were traveling is to make sure that your travel documents are in order, number one. Number two, you can check to see if you are on a do not fly list, because there are immigrants and U.S. citizens who are on that list. And oftentimes you can go to your congressman and they can check with FAA for you. The other thing that no one tells you and the Congress will never tell you is go to your congressman when you are about to travel. If you have a green card, ask your congressman to write you a letter so that when you travel, you can get back into the United States, because these agencies have to respond to Congress. And I've used this tactic many times where I've told people, if you are traveling, you want to come back in the country, use the letter, or if you have family members coming from other countries, have your congressional member write the letter for them and meet that person at the airport.
I just want to add, I agree with you, Latresa, and I think that the information you gave is very important, but I think the key here is that that form is being utilized in not a legal or ethical or moral way. I mean, that form is not new, as you and the gentleman here said, but it's being used. And what we have to be aware of is to spread the word that this is something that's being done in a very sneaky way to eliminate people from being able to come back. And these are legal permanent residents. These are not people that are undocumented. These are people that have gone through the process, that have waited years to get this card, and have the card now, and in a very sneaky way by the government, by ICE, are being given this form to people that sometimes do not even speak, read, or write the language, and just signing it. Once you sign it, my understanding is you cannot take that back. You should consult with an attorney and try and see what can happen, but basically you're saying you don't want your card. This is what's happening. You see how scary it is? These are the kind of things that are happening that a lot of us sometimes don't know.
I would like to say to those of us who are not immigrants and may not find ourselves in this situation, there's still something we can do. A moment ago, we were talking about sanctuary, where sacred space declare themselves as shelters for persons who are in the deportation process or who have been declared eligible for deportation, where they can come, live, stay in sacred space. The other, you're hearing people talk about people who are living with fear. The other definition of sanctuary is accompaniment. To be with people, walk with people, sit with people in court, interpret for people, accompanying them through the process so that people do not feel they are by themselves. So accompaniment is a part of sanctuary. Advocacy, giving voice on behalf of communities that are directly affected and advocating for them. We've heard some examples of how that can be done around policy and legislation, but within our communities, advocating on behalf of persons who are living in fear around us. And then fourth, to support. Offering financial support, offering space support, using resources. Although you're not an immigrant and may not feel you're under the microscope, there are ways in which we can be in community and solidarity with persons whose lives are at risk.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. This is going to be the last question of the evening, and you answered it, and I'm going to open it up for the rest of you. They would like to know, as non-immigrants, what can we do to help support and advocate? La pregunta es para gente con ciudadanía o que no son inmigrantes, ¿qué podemos hacer para ayudar en esta situación y soportar?
Those of us who are U.S. citizens, like myself, step up to the city councils, school boards, organizations and speak on behalf of the immigrants. Do the Know Your Rights workshops in Spanish and in English. Travel anywhere you want to and do them. I was called to go to Fresno, California. I started to figure out a date for that. But step up for them. Go to the stores that have a sign that says, "Not in our town," those kind of signs. I have some in the back. Thank them for doing that. Go to the stores that put up those kind of signs. Say, you know, I want to thank you for this. And if they don't have the sign, refuse to, don't shop there. Tell them, I'm going to stop shopping here. Do that kind of work and let it grow in momentum. We're doing it in Richmond.
My wife has a stack of those red cards in her purse, and when she's in line at any store, and she focuses pretty much on young teenagers that she assumes are probably not documented, and just gives them the card, talks to them about it. It's a bashful first encounter, but in about 2 minutes, they're friends. So, and we just hope from that calls get made, that those young people network with one another, with other people, but just spreading the word.
I'd like to add that I agree, those people that are U.S. citizens, we need to hold our officials accountable. Those people that are legal residents, please try and become a U.S. citizen so that you can have a voice for those that don't have the voice. We need to support comprehensive immigration reform, oppose the classification by Homeland Security of nearly all undocumented residents as targets for deportation. We need to connect and support with the sanctuary movement. Look for places and organizations that you can work with, that you can volunteer your time and help people. Urge the local government, both at the federal, state, and county levels, to do the right thing, to also stand up for the people that are having these problems. Work with the federal representative, as Latricia keeps on mentioning, you know, call the congressman, call Senator Dodd, call all of them, because you that speak the language, you that can vote, can make a difference for these families. And then we also heard from Chief Badu that they're not going to be ICE agents, that they're going to be doing what they do, which is being police officers and taking care of crime. That in itself is something that really makes us feel that we're on the right track. So if we have the police department on our side, that's a big active. Silence is the same as acceptance.
Yeah, I think you have to advocate for those that cannot fight for themselves. This is really the time for those that are citizens to come out there and advocate and fight. The city of Richmond is a sanctuary city. this past week, the city of San Pablo, I was there with Antonio here, became a sanctuary city. It takes advocacy, it takes people actually taking the risk and fighting. I'm a citizen, he is a citizen, but we're out there fighting, and he made sure the city of San Pablo became a sanctuary city. So it's your responsibility to step up, to advocate and fight. It doesn't have to come from heaven. Like my dad used to say, it's your responsibility if you want to see things change, to fight for it. And I think we are all in this together and we have to fight together. So do your part and things will change.
We organized and had 200 Latinos attend the city council meeting, and they spoke in Spanish with English translation for the monolinguals.
Educating yourselves on the root causes of why immigrants are here. We never hear Trump talk about, military aid to the human rights violations in the Philippines, or mining corporations from the U.S. displacing indigenous peoples in the Philippines. And these are the conditions in the Philippines that are pushing people out of the country. So I think in assisting immigrants, in wanting to help immigrants, we should also educate ourselves on the root causes of why they have to leave their countries in the first place, and holding our government, the U.S. government, accountable for those policies, those foreign policy that actually affects those countries and that are pushing people away from those countries to the U.S. I think that's one. And of course, to fight back, be in the streets with us, in campaigns against deportations, in campaigns against trafficking and wage theft. Join us in the streets and resist with immigrants, build solidarity with immigrants.
And then just to say,
to pose the question, what can we do here as U.S. citizen? Just to flip it back, we are actually all immigrants here. This is native land. We're standing on a lonely land just to uplift the North Dakota Access Pipeline, the native folks that are fighting up there. The fact that we're prioritizing profit over people, right? Profit over water and life. We are all immigrants in this land. So I think, kind of like what Eddie was talking about, we need to ask those hard questions. Why are people coming here in droves in the first place? The root causes of poverty and immigration in this country, the immigration crisis. I'd also say we need to listen compassionately and have cultural humility. Like, we think as citizens, we know what's best for immigrants, and as actuality, the immigrants and the workers and the folks that are undocumented have power within themselves. It's just tapping into that power and really uplifting their voices. And then kind of like what Dr. Gribbs or Pastor Gribbs was saying is that we need to wage love and deeply, deeply organize. Like, the isolation and alienation is our worst enemy, and our solidarity is our best currency in this moment.
One final comment. I was asked to speak at the press conference with the Japanese American Historical Society in San Francisco. 75 years since the incarceration of the Japanese American. As you know, many of them U.S. citizens. 2 of them were survivors of Manzanar. The lady spoke about her experience in the camp, and at the end, in tears, she faces the cameras of all the radios, of the TV stations that said, "Don't let this happen again. Don't let this happen again. Don't let this happen again." We have to be part of that movement.
The word that I would like to leave with all of us tonight is to look around the room and see who is here tonight, and to commit ourselves to double our numbers, to grow our numbers, to form organizations or join organizations. The Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity works in coalitions and alliances throughout the state of California. There are not enough of us. We should remember that on November 8th, 2016, the party that lost the election numerically won the White House. The person who was elected the chief executive of this nation numerically lost. He won the White House because too few people participated in that democratic process across the country. We can't let that happen again. And the only way we can avoid that happening again is by doubling our numbers. Now, we might say California's an outlier, but we're not. We have to double our numbers and spread across the country and around the world where people are feeling as if they don't matter. But we start at home. I would encourage us to leave tonight committed to organizing, mobilizing, and tripling the numbers of people in a room like this, wherever we are. Commit ourselves to doubling ourselves.
Join the ACLU. If you're a retired senior citizen or a student, it's $5. Otherwise, you pay the full fee. Join it.
Again, on behalf of Fighting Back Partnership, I would like to thank our distinguished panelists for coming and sharing information with us, especially Art, who flew in from Southern California. We really appreciate you.